Hi, it's Noir Nerd, and today I'm doing a code overview for a small project I've created as part of an experiment with learning React Free Fiber. React Free Fiber is this is um, React Renderer 3.js. So it basically helps you to work with 3.js within React, essentially, using like obviously the features of React, and it makes sort of creating free.js content uh, somewhat more powerful and easier, more accessible in some respects. But yeah, I wanted to get used to doing that, so I decided to create an app, which is basically a 3D mood board viewer. So it's a pretty simple idea. It's not fully there yet, but I mean the basic functionality is working now. So basically select images. There's a bit of a caveat of that at the minute that I have to have a placeholder image to the first image actually loads the second time you load it, but so there you go. So it's basically is queuing up the next one now. That's just something I need to work out basically. Then you can drag these images around, you can move around the camera a bit, some fly controls in there. This, you can click on each image to zoom it in a bit. Let's take this one off there. And then you can load another one up maybe. Get this one. Select the next. This is a bit weird at the minute because in a minute it actually loads up there. When you so that'll be the next image to load up when I select the next one and next image and yada yada. I think that's just something I need to improve in the code somewhere. The flow of it. Then you can take a photo. It just takes a photo of this canvas here. So that's the idea of it, and then you can like crop this, I guess. Probably need to doing that because of the CSS. I think just crop this. Da 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 da. So the idea is that you create like a 3D mood board, if you know what I mean. So that's the idea of it. You basically can load in a bunch of images. That's the one. There's another one loaded in there. You can also change the orientation, so I can make these all landscape. I can make them square or square. Something I want to do is make it so each individual one can have different orientations, but at the minute they all have the same orientation. But that's the basic idea of what I did. I've been working on it for about a week on and off, in between work and after work. After work, really. But okay, so let's have a little bit of a look at the code, which I'll say now is still in production, so it's not like exactly fini. It's sort of prototype at the minute. So there's no point. I'm not going to look at the CSS. I'm just going to go over the actual JavaScript and React. So let's take it from the top. So this is before I was trying to split everything up into many different components, but I just decided to do it all in one eventually. I was looking a bit at using React Router, but for now I just want to keep it simple and have it all in the same place. So basically everything at the minute is in this under page images load. I'd separated it out before because creating the board view was actually probably the most complicated part. But this at the minute actually is all contained within one. This one, I mean the actual what you actually see is app, and then images load. So it's just loading this component images load pages. So yeah. So I am using React Router a bit, but I don't really need to actually, to be honest, I don't think. But I digress. So where to start? So I'll start with just how the actual images are loaded, I suppose, or the 3D element. So there's obviously a lot going on here. Like I said, it's still work in progress in some respects. Some of this might change, but the actual board is if you can see, it's this fragment here, and we go to that. That is up here somewhere. So this is the board. We have a div with an ID of my node, which is important actually for capturing the images, but we'll go into that later. I've added a camera. Preserve drawing buffers there for the capturing the image, otherwise it does not work. Add a directional light. Let's say I add a directional light, an ambient light, suspense, which is for loading, and then we'll have. This is where the actual images get mapped as 3D objects. So if I say, is the image's state, is it there? And then if so, images map, and then a reference to image and index. Key is the index. Then the artwork texture is the what's being mapped really, and I'll show how we do that in a second. And then we've got fly controls, which is basically controlling the flying, and we also have some stuff for like. So I guess the actual 3D part, which is like the actual 3D boxes that are rendered. So this bit is called box, generic name really, but this draggable 3D image is what it's actually called, box. Probably because I was just working for an example when I first started doing it and just never changed the name. Okay, so we have a mesh. We have a prop passed in called artwork texture, which is here, artwork texture prop. It's passed. So it's passed as a prop. We have a few different states here using use state. So hovered, active. Also created a function for generating random positions, which is I've sort of gone through these things before, but you just basically minimum and maximum, just generate random positioning between 0 and 3. So there's a function there that does that. Position. We just do those random positionings. So this is what this constant variable here is doing, just generate random positions. So that's that. That's just a state. Every time it's generated, it generates a random position. Otherwise, if we did not, every time I added a new thing to the canvas, they'd all be piled on top of each other. So if I didn't do that, all of these images, as you'll see now, they sort of generate in a random position. But if I didn't do that, they'd all be piled on top of each other in exactly the same position. So that's why I do that. I mean, obviously it's not perfect, and you know, it probably could be better. I could probably tweak it a bit even, but at least now they're sort of in a spread somewhat. I mean, you can actually get around that usually by just dragging them around, but yeah. So that's that. Size viewport is just free stuff. Same with aspect. Then we use this use drag, which is from React use gesture. It's another library imported in. And that's for the dragging functionality. So that's pretty much just copied from the documentation, I think, for that. That allows us to drag the artwork. So position is just the position, the state of position, which we added here. And scale is set here. So if it's active, yeah, so you see how when I click on each one, it goes bigger, so that's what that active checks. So you click it, makes it bigger. To click on it. So we have if it's set to false initially, but then if it's active, prop scale is set. If it's not, initial scale is set. On click, set active. That's basically what's happening there. So that just changes the scale based on if it's clicked or not. And set active, which is the setting the state for active, which is initially set to false. And then pointer over, pointer out, I think it's to do with helps with the I don't know actually, but I'll put it in there. Yeah, then we want texture. So we need to use the loader for this, and that's where we load in our text. Use our texture loader, and then artwork texture, which is the prop we passed in here, as you remember. Which when we actually so when we actually upload an image, so look at what happens there, because that's sort of very important. It's a bit fiddly, and I think I need to improve it as well, because like I said, the placeholder needs to be there, otherwise it crashes the minute, which isn't ideal, but it does sort of work. So we've got an input for, it does sort of work, it's not fully working yet. So we've got an input form here, it only accepts type images. Then we've got an on change event, load image. So this is this part here really. So load image, we're doing a lot of file reading stuff here. So once that on the loading end of the image, set the file, which is a state, and then set the preview URL to reader result. Reader's data URL. Just do some console log in there for testing. And then we have a array called images, and then I add image preview URL to the answers. And then append image is for the display here. So where we've got the display here, which just basically shows what we've loaded up, the UI, just shows that basically. So then it gives you the name of the file and just a preview of the image as well. So might as well go over that. So that generates a key, just the date of when it's been added to string. And then we have a div class called image box. Image preview gets put in there, file name gets put there. And then I've got a state here as well for image divs, and then just add that. So maybe it's a better way to do that, but that's basically what that is, that fragment, image divs. So it just, that gets appended. One of these fragments gets appended every time we add a new image, basically. What else? So we have orientation, which I'm still working on a bit. So where this is the blah, 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 blah. This is the image previewing stuff. So I'm still working this out, but I can get it to set all of the mapped images to these orientations. So just have a little function here which just says set size image with the orientation, which is the state, which initially set to portrait, and then you've just got some different measurements there, different scales. Only problem I've got at the minute is I need to obviously set it for each individual one, so I need to figure out a better way to do that. If anyone's got any ideas, by the way, let me know in the comments below. That's always welcome. And then this is an experimental project, as I said. And then for the actual image taking, so you can take, like I said, you can take a picture of the image. I use a library called HTML to image, which is not too complicated. You just go HTML to image to JPEG, get the ID, the selector, it's my node. That's what I said before, my node, top quality. And then you just basically do run a function data URL, file link, and then this is just for what you write to get it to download the image basically to your browser, in your browser. Okay, what else was there? So I'm not uploading the images that, look, when I upload these images, I'm not uploading them anywhere. So I'll just show you. They're not being uploaded anywhere. They're just these blobs basically. Obviously, I guess if I was going to do this as like a full, like amazing app and stuff, I'd just upload them to. I'll upload them somewhere to, like, I don't know, some storage. But at the minute, it's just a blob, just referencing a blob. This blob. Obviously I might build on this in the future, but for now I think that's sort of alright. I mean, the whole idea of this is it's just a thing to get a snapshot of some mood boards and just take a picture of it based on that. So it's sort of supposed to be temporary. But I guess if you want to enhance this, you'd make it like have user profiles and stored images and that sort of thing. At the minute, you can add as many images as you want to it. I'm going to change that though, probably make it max, because I could do this actually if I want. I think. So I've said maximum of 8, but I've not actually set the limit yet. So I could just keep on adding files infinitely and just keep on adding them forever. So it's going to be quite crowded, as you can see already. Yeah, it's just quite crowded. Got 2 of the same image there as well. But yeah, so I guess that'll probably do. It's just a quick overview of that. It's like I said, it's an experimental prototype at the minute. But I thought I'd share some of the code there. I just think I'm not sure if there's plenty of other little bits and bobs I'm sure I could cover, but don't know if there's any worth in going into that great amount of depth really. So I hope the text is big enough to see. I know there's sometimes issues with that, but okay, I'm gonna leave it at that. I've been Nerd.